All right. Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the No BS, No Bullshit live stream. Today we're talking with members and we're taking questions, doing comments, and also for the record, happy Easter, everyone. I kind of almost forgot the holiday was the same day as the stream. I knew Easter was coming up though. So happy Easter to everyone out there. Everyone going to their church things today. Hopefully you guys are having fun and being safe. I guess you can't really go to church because we all know there's a lot of problems out there. A lot of places are still closed, and we're going to talk more about that later for sure. We've got a couple of cool topics, a lot of stuff to catch up on. So we haven't streamed in I think it's been a month. We basically do this kind of like the first Sunday we can in the month. It's actually the second Sunday of the month now. I'm aware now that I look at my calendar. But anyway, yeah, we're going to talk about the big problem of the world today. Everyone knows that one. And then we got Bernie Sanders going down in flames as campaign recently closed up shop. So that's very interesting. And then one other topic I thought of, I was just reminded in the pre-show, and I thought it was, I don't know a lot about it, but maybe we'll look into Bill Maher, I think, had some really interesting comments this weekend. Normally, I hate the guy, and he's normally a real bad left anti-Trump dude. But recently, I think he just kind of sided and was starting to kind of like take a rational stance on this whole epidemic and this health thing. And I think a lot of people appreciate that. So I might even have to wrap that into another video, but we'll see more about that later. But first, let me introduce my guests. Joined, as always, my true co-hosts. We got Sean and Marcus in the house. You guys are back. Welcome back. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing good.
All
Glad to
right.
be here.
Great.
Awesome. Awesome to hear from you guys. Let me put the cameras up. There's Marcus and my pretty little faces right there. Yeah, so we're going to be taking the comments. We're going to be taking questions and starting with the Bernie topics. Let me just go ahead and check the chat real quick, see who's already in the house. I see that Viper was first here. What's up, dude? Guardian says, good morning from Colorado. What's up, dude? Improsters in the chat and in the show. You're doubling up on us. Owen is my
hmm
name. I don't know what that person's name is, but he says sup, man. Morgan says hi. Joe says good morning from Miami. Hey, Miami, party in the city where the heat is on all night on the beach till the break of dawn. Welcome to Miami. Yo quiero el Miami. I know way too much old Will Smith rap songs, guys. I could go all day, but we got stuff to talk about. Matt said he got the notification. Thanks for that. Okay, jumping right in. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is out. What is everybody's thoughts?
I mean, this was foreseeable. He's been done in this race for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
He ran a terrible campaign. The DNC did not screw him over. I've been making video after video about this for over a year of why he's going to lose. And exactly what I've been saying is why this man lost.
For sure. Yeah, I think everyone, a lot of people, not everyone, because obviously he had fans. Obviously they had a lot of hopefuls. So we couldn't say it's ever a total surprise, but I do. Yeah, I think a lot of us, that me, Sean makes similar videos. A lot of people on the right leaning side were just like, what were they thinking with Bernie? Like, why are we trying with this guy again? Why is he trying? I think you said this in a tweet earlier, Sean, when I was pre-show. I was like, why would he think he could try the same strategy from 2016 all over again? It's like you already lost, dude.
Yeah, it's very I mean, it's predictable because they never accepted the legitimate reasons why they lost last time. It was all the DNC screwed over Bernie Sanders. Bernie would have won if not for the DNC. All that nonsense. And in reality, Bernie lost to Hillary Clinton because she got 3.5 million more votes,
Mm-hmm.
and she
Mm-hmm.
gained a lot of momentum in the southern states where they have a large population of black primary voters.
Awesome.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I think there could be arguments for, oh, there was some kind of shady foul play. I mean, the Clintons aren't known for being playing it fair, but regardless, I think there's a bigger picture that they're looking over, and it's just the socialism that's too far left for even the Democrats right now. I mean, we see a lot of far left people like Bernie, AOC getting a lot of attention. They look like they're more popular than they are, though, because they're just getting a lot of TV time and they're getting a lot of, press, and people support them. Big conglomerates. Twitter is behind a lot of this kind of stuff, but that just doesn't reflect in the votes in the real world.
so one of the other things that killed Bernie Sanders this go around, and I saw this on a Lauren Chen video the other day. is that Bernie actually doesn't have working class support. He has young support. And
Hmm.
in terms of income, young people, in terms of income, make the same amount of money as working class people.
Hmm.
But when you get older, and the people who support Bernie are in college, so they're going to graduate and they're going to make a little bit more money to be out of the working class. But when you get older, until those key demos that Bernie Sanders won against Hillary, he also lost those against Joe Biden. He lost literally every county in Michigan against Joe Biden.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a good time to point out. Just Biden is very similar to Clinton, like in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously they're different people, but as far as kind of policies, being these sorts of longtime politicians. I mean, Hillary wasn't really a politician for very long before, but they're just in that middle line, kind of regular Democratic establishment type. A lot of their stances can be seen as very similar. Both worked in the Obama administration. All those kinds of things add up, and it just makes them similar. And that's where it's just like, yeah, they're not as hardcore left. Even though I would say, I wouldn't vote for them. I would say, that's they're still terrible kind of liberals that make bad ideas. But Bernie is on another level where he's just. I mean, like let's point out something else. I mean, he's not even a Democrat. He's been
Right.
independent for decades, and then the last couple elections he decides to run as Democrat. And sure, I mean it makes more sense than running as Republican. There's a lot of similarities, but yeah, it just I don't know why. Like I think back to the his supporter base, it's just yeah he had a lot of young, excited people, a lot of energy, but they just weren't really the numbers that they thought
Right.
they were.
And young people don't vote. Joe Biden was basically strong everywhere Hillary Clinton was strong, but people didn't hate him because Joe Biden is not as toxic and as unlikable as Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll give him credit too. Like I've said before, like Biden's got a likability factor. Like I mean, he's definitely. I think a lot of him's been exposed as phony and like kind of not as likable. But I remember him during the Obama years. Like I liked the guy almost, and I don't support their stances and stuff, but it was just like he just seems like a nice dude. He was kind of like he backed up Obama real good, kind of similar to Pence backing up Trump real good, and not just being not controversial, just being like a strong figure, like kind of just the support system. And I remember even doing some of those Biden bro memes. I don't know if you guys remember the meme. It came out like I think around 2015, and people were like doing all these memes with Biden, just kind of like goofing around about how him and
Oh,
Obama
the
are these like,
bromance.
yeah, like
Yeah,
this
I've seen a few of them.
bromance. Yeah. What do you think about Biden and Bernie, Marcus?
Biden and Bernie. Well, you got two people, one with somewhat likability, like you said, and then you got Bernie, a socialist, running as a socialist Democrat, and if I had to choose between Biden and Bernie, I would probably have to go with Biden,
Hmm.
but but not just because of the politics involved, but because in a way, rail fans, the UP hat,
Nice.
rail fans have a somewhat genuine liking to Joe Biden in a way because Joe Biden has been a regular traveler for Amtrak during his time as a senator.
That's cool. That's cool. Respect, mad respect there. Glad you could bring up the rail fan community in the stream. I always love hearing about those guys. Rail fans, train fans, really relevant, things. Especially you consider a lot of these far left proposals about trying to use airplanes less. Like trains could be something that becomes more relevant in the future, but I mean, who knows now? I think we can make some transition into stuff now because it's like no one's traveling. We know we got this big health problem going around, and it's kind of crazy how all that stuff is changing. Like there's no planes, no planes, trains, automobiles. You can't even like leave your house these days. So I don't know how we're gonna even talk about like traveling on a train.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, trains are
thanks,
big
bro.
contributors. I was going to say trains are big contributors to probably why New York has had such a bad, you know, crisis point. Why
Hmm.
it's a good epicenter, I guess.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I
so
saw the pics. Like, I think it was a few cities too. Like just any ones with the subways and those packed trains, buses. Sometimes you're just so close together. I mean, I felt like that. I had to fly at one point, like at the beginning of all this, like before it got really bad. I already had this trip planned, and I know we were nervous just getting on a plane because I mean, you're basically in a tube with like 100 people or more, and if one person coughs or sneezes, I mean, you're all gonna be
They're
getting something.
they're gonna be landing that plane immediately, trying to decontaminate everyone on board and decontaminate the plane. I'm like, oh my God, that's gonna be a waste of time and tax dollars. But in the end, it'll be worth it.
Yeah, seriously, and I think we'll come out better at the end. But speaking of which, I got a new thing I wanted to show you guys. Hold on. I don't know if you guys see, but this is apparently how the Democrats wear their face masks. You gotta
Oh,
you gotta
I've
have
seen those photos.
you gotta have your nose above it so you could breathe, and it's really just it's really just a mouth mask. No, I had one of these, and I was gonna say the other thing that's changed a lot lately is the masks have become everyone's wearing masks now.
Oh yeah.
And it was like there was this thing like there's a big change in that because at one point no one was wearing masks and it was like they were saying don't wear masks, and then now it's like, oh, you got to wear a mask, guys. Like, and I saw you guys might have seen one, let me know, but
Oh,
yesterday.
I've seen plenty wear
Yeah,
masks.
yeah, I've seen a ton of masks, and then I even saw a sign. I went to the store yesterday, and there was a store that had a sign that said "No mask, no service."
Yeah,
Another one I would notice everywhere else is practice social distancing.
Hmm.
So there will be X's on the floor, 6 feet apart from each other, and as if that wasn't enough, some stores are putting like one of those bulletproof glasses in front of their faces, just in case someone happens to go achoo on
Yeah,
the
I, s-
cashier.
I saw that. Another store I went to, Vil Vilter says is that AJW. Yeah, AJW in the house. No BS, Marcus. We're just doing our mask thing. I'm showing you. This is how not to wear a mask, and then Sean is how to wear a mask.
right.
And I think
I don't have a mask, but believe me, I'm taking this as seriously as
yeah,
I can, and I'm
Marcus
taking
is
proper precautions,
immune. He's a
washing my hands at any given moment I see a sink with
You're
hand
actually streaming
sanitizer
from
and
a bunker. Marcus is 100 feet below ground.
He has his own filtered air.
So we're all prepared, okay? We're all prepared. And Colt says no BS. Happy to see you live. Happy to see you, Colt. What's up, everybody? Sinister. Garth says what's up. Wingnut says hot dog Joe when we're talking about Biden. Yeah, no, I was thinking about the mask thing, and I wanted to see what you guys noticed this too because yeah, I remember this thing is hard. It's like it gets you warm talking in it.
Yeah,
Let me just do
it's
this.
it's awkward. What's weird is I'm used to seeing masks because I live in an Asian neighborhood, and a lot of people in my neighborhood just wear those masks like normally when they take the train, and I always found it weird.
Hmm.
But if you look at the infection map, everybody would think, based on the virus origin being from China, that the Asian neighborhoods would be hit the hardest, but that's not the case.
Hmm.
It's actually the neighborhoods, like one neighborhood over here in New York, that are hit the hardest. So masks work.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that from the beginning too. Like in my opinion, in the beginning, because actually I had a interaction with that too because my wife's Asian and she was talking about wearing a mask, and it was just kind of like a thing, like it's just more common for them. They've seen them before, and it's like their communities and their places, like they just kind of would wear them. And at first I kind of balked myself because I was like, babe, I mean, I know that's, I don't want you to make other people paranoid. Someone else chopped in, by the way.
Hysteria just entered the chat. Oh
Yeah,
boy,
shout out
what
to
a name!
Hysteria. Go ahead and chime in whenever you're ready. We're just talking about face masks. And yeah, no, the wife was trying to wear one, and this was like over a month ago, and I was just kind of like, oh, I don't think we need it. It's kind of might make people paranoid. Like I don't want to be like awkward. But then in the last whatever 3 weeks, everything's changed, and it's like now you're weird if you don't wear one.
Yeah. I haven't seen anybody in around here be refused service for not wearing a mask. Like I went to 7-Eleven and everybody was masked up. They had that sneeze blocker
Mm-hmm.
over the cashier like Marcus was talking about.
Yeah, the
Um
bulletproof glass.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But I haven't seen that, and I've been going to the grocery store, so there are people there without masks. But the majority of people now are wearing them, and it's
Yeah.
not just the people who are maybe culturally predisposed to wear them.
Hmm.
It's also like people that you wouldn't expect that are wearing these masks out in public. And if
Yeah.
we go to a store, anybody who's working at a store is definitely wearing them.
Yeah, it's definitely prevalent. Everyone's on board now, which is good because I think that goes back to another part of this is not only has the crisis changed, but like a lot of some of the rhetoric has changed, like coming from uh actors, some of them government actors, some of them political. Like there were like basically a month ago they were telling us not to wear masks and they're like actually a mask can make it worse. And then now they finally flipped and it was like, oh, now they're telling everyone to wear masks, they're showing you how to make makeshift masks. I mean, in this we're talking about I can't say specifically, I don't have any notes, but I know like the Fauci and the Surgeon General were like anti-mask just like a couple weeks ago, and then
Yeah,
everyone else was anti-mask, and then all of a sudden they had to flip because it was like just too much working against them. And I think all of us knew, like I always knew, I was only against masks early on because I didn't want to be paranoid or just like cause a scene. Like, but it was like I know if you want to wear a mask, wear it. It's not gonna hurt,
yeah.
you know.
And
Just
like the
just take
Surgeon
note.
General
Just take
specifically, for sure, was telling people not to wear masks, that it would do more harm than good. And then they put out a video with him showing you how to make all these makeshift masks,
Yeah.
and he's not even using stuff like that's he's one of the towels that he's using is see-through, so he's still not doing the best job of explaining it. But that's been happening with all these health officials. Like I live in New York, so the New York City, like the top health person for New York City, she like her ads are all over my YouTube, all over my Twitter.
Hmm.
Like I can't go a day without seeing them like 30 times. And that's the same woman that was like, everybody come to Chinatown to celebrate Lunar New Year. Get in this crowded, Chinatown's really small. Manhattan's very densely populated.
Of
oh
course,
yeah.
of course.
But like, so it's very small. And she's like, everybody crowd in there. And she's in there promoting like a huge gathering. And now she's on like every single ad. And I'm like, dude, you can't fool me. I'm not going to forget just because
Yeah.
I see you on TV every day and online every day, on every social media every day.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about now because I had her in a video. You're talking about the lady in New York City that runs
Yeah.
the health there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name. You might have just said it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about now because yeah, I saw the clips of her, and I had a video where I had clips of her and De Blasio like
Yeah.
just totally contradicting themselves and just making a mess of things in New York. And yeah, I saw that. And I was like, damn, that's so messed up because they were the same ones. Like we're talking about the mask stuff. They were talking about like you just said, the Chinese stuff. I had the clips on my video, and it was like Pelosi was saying that too. They're all talking about going to Chinatown. And they're like, yeah, we're still going to Chinatown. Like they're trying to brag about it. And it just looks so messed up, like especially now. I mean, granted, I know there's a little bit of a hindsight there. Like we're looking at things in hindsight, but still, like these are big public officials for major big ass cities. Like they should have been way more careful.
Right.
For
Well,
sure.
the bigger problem then was the racism. Don't you know that, Brooks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so racist to
Oh yeah.
identify
Anytime.
country of origin for a deadly disease.
But
Yeah.
what if people didn't order Chinese food because they're worried about the virus? Didn't you think about that?
I know. I made sure I've actually only ordered Chinese food for the last week out of shame, and it was because AOC said if you don't get mushu pork at least once a week, you're a racist. Let me just one more thing. Let me shout out. Is Hysteria there? I see you join the call. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can hear us, but
He
feel free to chime in. Can you hear us?
He's muted right now.
Yeah, I see he's muted. He says yes, so go ahead and I don't know if you're trying to connect or something. Welcome to the show. We've got a female guest. Guys, don't get nervous. I'm just
Whammon.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, feel free. I think they can't connect. Maybe try to your microphone. It looks like you have the mute button on, so there's like a microphone button. So if you figure out, I guess they're just listening. But yeah, if you feel like chiming in, take your time. They're making dinner, no rush, whatever you feel like. This is a chill stream, by the way, guys. Everybody watching, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the guests who have joined us already. You guys are the best. But yeah, there's a link on the No Bullshit community page. Members can join in and just say hi. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, or you can just join in full speed. Right now, Marcus is actually a member, longtime fan of the show too. I feel like you're just a part of us now. I mean, you, and Sean have been doing streams for years.
Well, if I had to talk about how I discovered No Bullshit, it ironically enough began with South Park, actually.
Nice.
I was actually scrolling through some videos, and I'm like, somebody's explaining South Park episodes. I'm going to watch this guy. So I'm like, okay, this guy seems pretty interesting, this and that, da-da-da-da-da. And then I realized, wait a minute, this guy's conservative.
Yeah, he's a little nasally, but he's got some good points. A little nasally, but yeah, thanks for that, dude. I'm glad South Park's what brought you in. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because this is something other people have said. I know a lot of us have probably thought about this, but can we all just imagine for a second what South Park's going to do this year in their next season? We got a long time.
I can only imagine what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to go straight to present day, or if they're going to take it like a year back and just progress forward with each and every episode.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be like quarantine jokes or something. Like I could just picture them all. Like I could just picture Cartman in like a full hazmat suit, or I don't know. Like who knows where they'll go with it? But there's definitely some good material going on right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the first episode back might be the one that covers everything that happened, because they take longer to make that first episode, and then they do it week to week. It also depends on how long this is going, and if they can actually get their crew together to do the episodes.
Yeah. Hopefully things cleared up. We're talking about they usually come back in September, so we got plenty of time right now. I mean, it doesn't seem like this is going to end. I mean, I think that's another good discussion too. Is just when will this end? Are we ever going to go back to normal? I was talking about this with a few friends, even my mom. I was talking to my mom about it because we're just kind of like thinking. I mean, and to a certain degree, things are never going to go all the way back. Like we're gonna hopefully fix things and solve this problem, and I think things will go back to a new normal, but it's going to be like a new normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's gonna be things that are pretty different. Like me and Brooks are both movie guys. I don't know if movie theaters are gonna make it through this, or we're gonna end up with home releases.
Yeah.
Lord has entered the chat.
Yeah, we got a new guest here. Lord, can you hear us? Lord's in the house. Chime in whenever you're ready. I see you got a webcam.
No, I can't hear you.
How's it going?
Going right. How are you?
Oh, doing great. We're just talking about some stuff about current events and everything. How are you doing? Happy Easter.
Oh, thank you. Happy Easter. The volume isn't very good.
Okay. Well, you might need headphones. I think you're on your phone. If you might have some headphones, that could help. But we can hear you, and feel free to chime in on whatever. Welcome to the show, Lord, and then Hysteria, Marcus, and Sean. Okay, so movies. I totally thought about that too, Sean. You were just mentioning, and yeah, I was thinking that. I actually mentioned that in the same conversation because I was thinking, we used to go to movies a lot more. Like I remember 2018, I went to like a movie almost every week, and it was like, there was a lot of good movies that year. And a lot of times, this is when I was still living in LA, and the theaters could get real crowded there. So it's like I'm shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of strangers almost every week. And it's like, do you really think our world's going to go back to that anytime soon?
Right. Even if the movie theaters open, are people going to go back to see them? Like we might see that home release model where it's like $20 for a movie and you get it for a certain period of time when it's new.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's another one of these systems, and we could go through a couple other things too. Hopefully, Lord can hear us better.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. What do you think about movies, dude? Have you been to the theater? Do you think? I mean, obviously not recently, but do you think that theaters are going to come back one day after this blows over?
I think it may take a while for people to be able to get out and know that the virus isn't a spread. Myself, I haven't been going to see new movies in theater for a while. I've been going to flashback cinema because I just don't think it's worth the entertainment value these days. It's all propaganda.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go see the old movies that I'm going to enjoy. Is I want to go spend the money and go see a movie that's going to be a piece of crap because it's about feminism or whatever,
Sure.
which most of Hollywood is. So
Oh yeah, I know that's definitely a topic we get into on a number of videos because it's hard to find the good ones. There still are good ones, but it's like hit or miss. Like maybe one or two out of 10, you could find some action movie that doesn't try to get political. Uh, but yeah, and that reminds me of another thing too. Like you're talking about costs, and I think people were kind of already straying away from movie theaters previously, and then it's like nowadays. I mean, how are you going to go back when after all this health scare? It's like, do you really want to go back and you got to pay 20, $30 plus you got to risk your life or something? It's like, no.
Right.
yeah,
We got another one joining in. Welcome,
Yeah.
Crystal.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Crystal. I think I saw your cam for a second. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Welcome to the show. I like your I believe that's Doctor Who logo. Awesome. What are your thoughts on any this movie stuff? Have you guys been to the movies? Where on your end? Been watching any movies?
I haven't seen any movie from the movie theaters um, recently, but I would say the last movie I saw was Hacksaw Ridge.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
That's the last time I've been to a movie theater.
That's a pretty long while, I think. Actually, I forget when that movie was. But yeah,
26
I mean, this
27.
year I haven't been at all. Like specifically, I think we were more, yeah, talking about the trend and if it'll come back. But yeah, specifically, actually, that reminds me though, because I remember specifically like in January at some point, I sent a message to one of my buddies, and I was like kind of excited about this year. It was before everything happened.
Right.
And I
Every
was
movie.
like, it was like going to be a good year of movies. Like we had a 2020 calendar, and it was like Fast and the Furious, James Bond, Mulan, Black Widow. Like I was like, oh damn, like we're kind of pumping back up again. This could be a good year. And then yeah, a month later, and we all know all that stuff's delayed. Everything's closed. Like we're in a whole other world now.
Yeah. The last movie I saw was actually really recently by comparison. I saw the Hunt movie. And
Okay.
I went to that the day before like New York issued all the lockdowns.
Yeah, yeah. No, I saw that movie too because it came out on download like a week later or something. Because it was like, yeah, it came out in a theater and then they closed a week later.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, that was actually pretty good. We could talk about that a little bit. I did a video about it back when it came out, but that was actually a pretty better movie than I thought.
Right. Well, I did the original video when they delayed the movie last year, and I was like, this like from the trailer, it doesn't look like what people are saying about it is actually true. That it's this
Hmm.
anti-conservative movie or anything like that. I'm like, it looks like a comedy more than anything. And then year later, I have to go see it because I'm like, I'll do the follow-up video if they ever release it. And then they released it, so I go see it, and it's basically what I expected.
Yeah, it ended up being different. Like I know the premise. I could see why people were getting upset, like especially considering like what Lord was just mentioning, like a lot of the propaganda and the liberal kind of ideas in movies already. And then you see a movie coming out called The Hunt where they're hunting conservatives. You're like, Jesus, they're really taking it too far. And I could see that reaction. But yeah, when you look into it a little bit, and maybe the trailer tells you enough. When I saw the movie, it was like, okay, they're actually going after both sides a lot. And then in some ways, you could say, oh, the conservative is the main character and like the hero, the
Right.
girl. But then there's also a flip flop on that. I don't know if you picked up on this um, or considered it that way, but like they kind of flip flop that at the end. So you're just
Yeah.
like, you don't even know if she is political.
Yeah,
And
she just happens to be a middle America type that
yeah,
was the same name as the other person. I remember that.
yeah, and I was like, that was the big cop out because at first I was gonna give the movie more props because it was almost like, oh, they've subverted expectations and like the conservative girl is the hero, and that would have been surprising. But then at the end they're like, oh well, we don't even know, like she's the wrong girl. It's like
I
fuck.
mean, I just laughed at the premise because it was super goofy because it turns out that the whole reason for the hunt is because they were angry at conservatives for believing that leftists would hunt conservatives.
Yeah,
So,
that was
so in response,
so
they
bad.
actually did it, which is ridiculous.
I know, and they like try to call it out like one line in the movie where that comes up. I think at the end when the girls go after each other. the two main characters. And it was like, I was like, yeah, what? Like, so they're mad that people said they would hunt conservatives, so they go and hunt conservatives. It's
Yeah.
like, way to prove them right, I guess.
The feminist kill, by the way, was one of my favorite moments in that entire movie.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that
not
was
to
a really
spoil
good
it.
one. I guess we could spoil more. I mean, I don't think people, if they were going to see it, they would already see it. So I try to be a little careful. But yeah, that moment was hilarious because I guess we could spell it out a little bit because it was so funny. What was it? It was basically like, oh, you know, do you want me to treat you differently because you're a girl? And she's
Yeah.
like, no. And then he kills her, or she kills
She
her.
just fucking murders her right there.
Yeah.
The movie's really dumb, and a lot of the dialogue that like conservatives and like liberals say to each other is like completely inaccurate. And you know, because we cover politics, we know how people talk to each other about politics.
Mhm.
So like that part was really funny, but like maybe 1 out of every 5 lines they actually like got something close to right, and it was really like funny.
Yeah, and I think that's what made it more frustrating too, because they were like really close to doing something like cool and like poignant and like kind of fair almost, like because they did have both sides in there, and they make fun of the liberals and the champagne socialist people too. And yeah, but then at the end, the other thing about the movie, we're talking about The Hunt, by the way, guys. That's a pretty famous movie. Had a lot of talk about it. Anyway, yeah, The Hunt, and the other thing was it just kind of turns into a typical action too.
Right.
Like it starts off with these political premises, but then it's just like this badass girl beating people up, which wasn't badly done. It was a good, like that looked good, and I like the main girl. She's like kind of like basically I thought of her as like a new Kill Bill. Like she was like looked like Uma Thurman and Kill Bill, you know, just like badass chick taking everyone out. Um, but what anybody else have thoughts on that? I think were you about to say something, Lord?
I wasn't a movie I planning on seeing. It didn't look that interesting to me.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. And then, Crystal, feel free to chime in or let us know if you have any thoughts too. I think you muted your mic. You might have stepped away. But we have room for everyone to speak and welcome. And I'm glad we got some new guests today. Glad there's a couple people watching. We got about 17 viewers, which is a new high for us. Let me check the chat real quick. We got Miles, Matt, let's see here. Buff Bryson has a good point. He says Hollywood is failing. They've been exposed as propagandists. It's all mind games. Well, that sounds like, yeah, it sounds like they would agree with you there, Lord. And I can see that too. I think I might give them a little bit more credit. I'm kind of like a hopeful. Like if you guys follow me, you know I love movies and I go see everything anyway, even some of these shitty ones. So yeah, I try to give them a chance, but it's really hard these days. Especially, I think the main thing that really kills it for me is one, the stuff we already said in the movies, and them trying to shove in like feminist stuff or like lady reboots, and you know just destroying old properties with these terrible ideas that are all influenced by liberalism. But then the other thing that kills me, and this is I think a whole other thing, because it's like then on top of that, these actors have to like preach politics to us on Twitter and shit.
Right.
You know, like it's like Jesus, you got to shove it in your movies, and then you got to have Alyssa Milano acting like she's like some spokeswoman for women, and then now she's got this whole anti-Second Amendment tweet that she tried to bounce back on. Like it's just totally disgusting to me that they would like they have. It's like, isn't it enough? You're rich, you're popular. You've got everyone watching you. Like, why do you have to also like try to push your politics?
I heard somewhere that, especially at the Oscar speeches, it's a political move for them to get into the business to go on the liberal speeches they do, and a lot of it is for them to get, hey, I need work, so I'm going to go on this liberal rant and get in good graces of executives. So that's part of it.
For sure, I can see that. Yeah.
Right.
Sean?
Yeah, and like it's not even like here's the thing is there have been like lefty politics in movies for a really long time. Like even in franchises that we love, but it's not just the fact that they're like political, it's that they're also really bad about it. Like I'm a big fan of allegory. If you're going to have a message in your movie, blend it into the story and make it subtle. But now it's literally like characters looking you dead in the face and lecturing you about politics.
Yeah.
Like it's not creative, it's not interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't like about movies nowadays when it comes to politics wise. I mean, yeah, they used to reference things very subtly, and you're like, I see what you did there, and then it's like, yeah, in your face.
Yeah.
I'm like, cut that crap out.
For sure.
But
And that's the best message like you can really send too. Like the most powerful way to influence people isn't to heavy hand them and like say, "Oh, specifically in your movie, guys are terrible people and women are strong and brave." Like no, don't say that. Like show it. Like give us a Kill Bill movie and give us the whole premise and she's like getting revenge and I know I squeezed in Kill Bill already today, but I think it makes sense. Like that's why that movie's good. And you could even say that Tarantino was definitely trying to push some kind of like pro woman slight feminist angle. Like I know he's not like I would never call it like a propaganda thing because he just did it well and he's like I wanted a girl lead and these are the themes that have to kind of deal with that.
right, and Quentin Tarantino is like an ultra far leftist in terms of politics, but he
Mhm.
is also a creatively talented person. So his
For sure.
movies, look, do they have messages in them? For sure. Like Quentin Tarantino is a huge fan of like the blaxploitation era of films. That's why he did that movie with Pam Grier.
Jackie
What's her?
Brown, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jackie Brown, because he loved her. He loved her movies growing up. But he makes good movies. He writes dialogue really well. There's not those moments in his movies where they're like quoting Twitter as if it's dialogue.
Hmm.
Like movies have been like become like bad teen drama. Like, have you ever seen that Degrassi show on Netflix?
Yep.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen it.
Like that's like the
My-
level of dialogue for movies now.
Hmm.
Yeah, my sister's a huge fan of that show.
Yeah, that's a long running show. I've heard that's like the one that Drake was on when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They actually been running that show for over, I think, 30 or 40 years, but they keep splitting it into like mini series.
Well, they did a Star Trek where they had the original from like the 70s and then they did the next generation when all those people were adults and they weren't successful actors so they could get them back as adults. And then they just run through the school with like the new generation. The only reason I know about this is because the Netflix one was really bad. So I started watching it back to make a video on it. And I realized that like that show was, first of all, it's Canadian. So it's like already ultra progressive.
Already terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But I realized how much it had changed, like how much progressiveness had changed by watching some of the older episodes on the same subject. Like it's really crazy, like how they adopt like new standards just right into the show as if they're normal. And I'm like, yeah, I know that's Canada, but like they're pushing a lot of that stuff here.
Yeah, and they're just like you said, like they're not being subtle with it. They're not being creative about it. Like, yeah, I remember the same kind of. It's just like kind of the messages we used to get in '90s shows too. Like, and not they wouldn't always be like as progressive, but it's like when whatever Saved by the Bell had that episode, and there's like the girl gets hooked on the pills or something, or there's
It's a
like
very special episode.
yeah, yeah, like that one. That's just a classic one. But there's all kinds of shows like that. There's an episode where their friend gets like abused or something like that, or like some person like parents die, or like there's always like these messages. But yeah, the old school ones would just be more subtle about it and more just like it would at least look neutral. Like as far as political, it's just like, oh, okay, of course we're gonna be teaching kids not to do drugs. Like who's gonna disagree with that? But
Another good example would be Roseanne.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of those sitcoms, like that was a family one. There'd always be like some kind of little bit of a lesson. I mean, that was more of a comedy too. Like, but they knew not to be like heavy-handed. That was a comedy show, and then the family was what held it together.
Well, like they do that all the time. Like, have you ever like I know this is a random one, but I figured Brooks would know it. Did you watch the show Static Shock?
Yeah, yeah, I remember that show. That was a good one.
Do you remember the school shooting episode in there, or like the kid brings a gun to school episode? If I could be more accurate.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but
yeah, that's like a very special episode. Like you
Mhm.
introduce a new character, he was bullied, then he brings like the gun to the school,
Yeah.
and then they literally have like a PSA at the end of it That's like every other episode of like that Degrassi show.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was. That's why I was getting those examples too. Like, and like the way you say it, I get it. It's like they have those very special episodes on those
Yeah.
shows, and it's like, yeah, the show doesn't do it every week. It's just like or two episodes a season. They're like, oh, we gotta support the whales. Like, we're gonna be like talking about this issue.
And it's like completely out of context for the character. Those episodes are terrible to watch because they
Yeah.
almost never blend it in with the characters. And like you forget about those episodes because back in the day it's a 22 episode structure. You're watching it over the course of a year. They have that one episode. You're like, whatever. But
Yeah.
now that's like that level of dialogue where it's like the PSA where they're looking at the camera is like in every movie for like 1 point or
Yeah.
in every TV show, and it's insane.
That's the difference too, for sure. It's like it's definitely that where it's like, okay, they might do that once a season on Saved by the Bell, but
Right.
now on a whatever Degrassi or whatever garbage news show, it'll be every week. Like,
But it's in movies too. Like
yeah, movies too.
Movies have it.
It's crazy.
Another series that would have a dialogue like that or PSA. Another one I always hear about a lot is Grey's Anatomy.
Mhm,
Grey's
mhm.
Anatomy will have an opening PSA and a closing PSA, and it's usually the same thing. Like,
I'm
it's
sorry, it sounds hilarious. It's like a PSA sandwich.
Right.
like they'll talk about a certain issue at the beginning, and it's supposed to be in your mind the entire episode because they will repeat it again at the end.
Yeah, it's so heavy-handed. It sounds like
Yeah.
just forced, And that Grey's Anatomy show, I mean, oh my God, you're talking about Ellen Pompeo's show, like she's like one of the worst progressives out there. Not as vocal as like a Alyssa Milano, but like I've done a video or two on her over the years, and she comes up with some real bad shit. Like you guys might remember some of the clips. Like I think one of the famous ones was Ellen Pompeo was like saying she saw too many white people on the set she was working on, and she was trying to like virtue signal and be like, I see a lot of white people working here, like that's wrong, like oh my God, we need more minorities. And it was just like,
Yeah,
Jesus, lady.
that's pathetic. But
Did you ever watch 13 Reasons Why?
No, not yet, but I know I should. Like,
Oh my God! First of all,
my mom has watched that, and I'm like, kind
first
of.
of all, 13 Reasons Why, no joke.
I want to watch it, but at the same time, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
13 Reasons Why, no joke, is the greatest series in the history of Netflix.
Okay.
Because the first season, it's based on a book. The first season takes up the whole entire book. And then there's 2 other seasons after that, and they have no idea what to do. So every single episode and every single character is like a propaganda leftist message. And it's amazing. It's like the cringiest thing you'll ever watch in your life.
Okay, I need to
And I
watch it
love
now.
every second of it.
I knew
Like,
I
no.
had to. Go ahead, Lord.
I was gonna say Tiger King is pretty cringy. I just watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm scared to watch more.
Tiger King.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, Tiger King is crazy. Yeah, no, I can see that because there's some weird stuff in there. Like I'm just like, what am I watching? Like you kind of feel dirty watching it. You're just like, oh my God, what's wrong with this? But yeah, that's a good one too, and that one's definitely the most famous thing right now. Tiger King. Even people are asking Trump about Tiger King right now. That's what was the last video I made, and they're like asking Trump if he'll pardon Tiger King.
I saw
That woman looks like Hillary Clinton.
She does. Oh yeah, she definitely does. I saw that. You might have saw the AIU video, and he had like a bunch of the clips of the. I think those clips are going around everywhere. But yeah, the clips of them putting them together, the deep fake, and it's just so perfect. But because they're already there, I mean, it's like just there. But
It's like animal Hillary, who like is actually low key more corrupt than animal Tiger Trump.
yeah, I mean, Hillary's husband is still alive, right?
But
But
I'm
yeah,
saying that Carol woman, she's like she's really shady, like, and like she's going after this guy and trying to be more virtuous than that. But it's like you're clearly the one with the bigger issues.
yeah, for sure. And I want to let's talk Tiger King. I want to go back to 13 Reasons Why, and I have a note about Pam Grier you mentioned because I wanted to bring that up. But let me first check the chat, and then Miles is here. He said she's so ridiculous. GI Joe had their message at. Oh yeah, I was thinking GI Joe when we were talking about the messages in the back of my
Oh
head.
yes.
I remember those messages at the end, but that one was even better too. Like they had little messages, and you knew it was a kid show as well, and it was just kind of like they did it cool too. Like it made it cool.
Right.
You know, like
Well,
they had
they
the
have them. It's for kids. It's different, but like they have the message at the end. And GI Joe, I also think was somewhat connected to the U.S. military. Like they promoted that a little bit.
Mhm.
But that's the message at the end. That's not like in the story where
Yeah.
where like the kids are like the characters are regurgitating the lines.
And that's
So they
why I
bring it-
knew like that's a good place to come back to, like you said about 13 Reasons Why. Like I didn't know specifics, but like I've heard people talking about it, and I saw a few reviews, and I could tell it was one of those bad shows that I needed to watch, but I didn't realize much about it because I just didn't look into it. But now from what you say, I think I got to watch that next.
Dude, it's so amazing that I thought I was gonna make a video on it, right? Because
Yeah.
remember, season 1 had all that controversy. I ended up just like I'm unironically anticipating the 4th season because it's so like the first season based on a book. You could tell that they had a vision for the show, right? You might actually find the first season to be interesting or even good. The second season, they have no idea what they're doing. So they're like every single news item is in the show, and you're like a group of like 10 kids are having like every major political issue happen to them, and then they have a season after that where they have to double up on that. It's amazing.
It's
like,
all happened at the same time. It's like, how come this guy has to deal with the Second Amendment? He's got to deal with racism, and he's got to deal with the drug addiction. It's like, Jesus.
There's a character that's like so like there's in the second season. I don't want to spoil it, but like there's this like character that's like the Brock Turner equivalent for that second season. That he literally is like taking pictures of all the women that he victimizes, and then they have the photos, right? And they can turn them over to the police. But then one of the girls is like, the police will never believe a black woman. And it's like,
oh god,
what? It's like you have 40 photos of it. Like they're all like, if you videotape a crime, you're going to jail. But they're like, that's not how white privilege works. And you're like, Jesus. Oh my god,
that's hilarious. I want to watch this, and then I really like your enthusiasm. Like your enthusiasm is getting me excited to try this because I knew it was back there, like I said. Because I remember when the first season came out, I knew it had something to do. I think there was like a suicide plot or something. Like,
yeah.
Like I knew a little bit of the. I had some tertiary knowledge of it, but yeah, now I've seen people review it, go over it, so it sounds great.
That's from the book. The first season's from the book. That's like interesting, and it's like the basis of like the show. And like you could look at the critic and audience score. Like the first season's at like 70-80%, and then the next 2 seasons are at like 20% and 5% because it's just junk. But it's like high budget Netflix junk.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Game of Thrones after they got past the books.
Yeah.
Like they just like a lot of people would say there's stuff falling apart. Like you get past the books and it's like the writers got to do the heavy lifting, and it's just like, oh my god, what do we do?
But it's like, dude, it's like every single issue. There's like an abortion storyline in there. There's like a coming out story in there. There's the illegal immigration. Like ICE comes after people. Like it's so dumb, and like it's a book about a girl explaining what like drove her to commit suicide. That's what season 1 is, right? But then after that, it's like like it's one thing to have a message, but you can have your show have all of the messages.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They have all the messages. Like we're just like going through the Democratic playbook or something.
Dude, it's all of them 100%, and like they're so bad at it that like you hate the people that you're supposed to support. Like you hate the victims throughout all of season 2 because they're like, you're like, just go to the police. Like, what are you doing? Like, and they're like actively sabotaging their own chances of going to the police because they're like white patriarchy's the problem.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my, like you're like, nobody would act like this. Stop it. And they're like, it's just insane. And there's like, there's literally like a kid that's about to get into Harvard. and they need him to testify against a criminal. And his dad is like, the kid happens to be black. His dad's like, if you testify against that white boy, you won't be let in Harvard. So like the kid lies on the stand because his dad told him that he worked his whole life for this and he can't put somebody in jail because Harvard will reject him because he's black.
Jesus.
Like,
Yeah, dude.
Like,
this sounds
like who do you hate in that scenario? You hate his parents and you like hate that terrible reasoning. Like, but they're trying to make it that you feel bad for the kid being in that position, but it's just so insane. Like he's already in Harvard that you hate that kid.
Jesus. Yeah, no, it sounds like the perfect example of like the perfect bad example of messaging. Like we were talking about the messaging and stuff, and it's just like the perfect worst example. And I want to watch it. I love it. I love it because I know it'll be ironically funny. But you sound like you're genuinely interested too.
I'm like legitimately like so happy right now that this got brought up because
Yeah.
it's like there's also like terrible foreshadowing throughout the entire show. Like the most obvious, like you're watching and you're like, this cannot be real. Like you know exactly where certain characters are going, like just from paying attention vaguely to the news.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the most amazing. It really is. Like
That's cool.
I was gonna make a video on it, but I was so fascinated. I'm like, I can't make a video on this because it will be 6 hours long.
Yeah, it sounds like a series. Like you need a series of videos on it.
Yeah.
Like, because it's got a lot to say. I don't know how you'd even address it all. But let me change gears for a second. Let me first see if Crystal's in there. Crystal, do you have any thoughts on these Netflix shows? If you're there, I just want to make sure you get a chance to talk if you want to. Maybe they stepped away. But we are listening, so anyone that wants to chime in, open mic, open show. Appreciate everyone stopping by. Let's see. The other thing I think I wanted to spin back. We're talking about Netflix. We're talking about these shows. I think we could talk a good deal more about Tiger King. Tiger King is just like, oh my god, the biggest show, the biggest meme. Like so much interesting characters there. And yeah, like I was saying before, there's stories like it was brought up to Trump. I mean, I think that was kind of like a joke, almost a joke question. Trump like was pretty jokingly saying he'll look into it. I doubt anything more is going to happen, but like, I mean, I think he could possibly put a couple staffers on it and just like say, hey, is there foul play? Like, what's going on? Because it wouldn't be out of the question. I think they already said they're going to reopen the Carol Baskins investigation too.
Yeah. They're asking for tips in that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I think that'd be funny. And then any other thoughts on that show? I think Lord said you just watched a couple episodes. Did everybody else watch Tiger King or the whole thing? Or
Well, I think it was just weird that her husband just disappeared out of nowhere, and he was really wealthy.
yeah,
That's always suspicious,
of course.
especially when they have a lot to lose. That someone just disappears like that, and no one really investigates.
Yeah.
Well, his case as presented in the documentary looks like that maybe he didn't do what they're accusing him of doing. However, the key phrase there is as presented in the documentary, because there have been a number of documentaries that have cut stuff out of context in order to say that this person's innocent or that person's innocent, and they turn out to be completely guilty. Like I do videos on these people that are completely guilty.
That's a good point for sure. Like these documentaries, they have a lot of ways to like manipulate information, leave out stuff, highlight other things. Like people underestimate that a lot, and they think they're getting like, especially with a documentary, like a documentary kind of has this implication like you're watching real events and it's like real life, but at the same time, it's like would you consider like a reality show a documentary? Because they kind of sometimes they can do the same kind of things where like a reality show like Kardashians or whatever, like they're only showing what they want you to see, and they're only giving you bits and like whatever propaganda and spin they want.
Right.
So
well,
yeah,
I mean,
I think if you judge by the documentary though, like I was definitely on board. We're talking about Tiger King and we're talking about Joe Exotic. He was the main guy, the Tiger King, and a lot of people kind of suspect like he was framed and kind of just pushed into, maybe entrapped into this like charge that got him into jail, which was hiring someone to kill Carol fucking Baskins.
Really? Yeah, when it comes to that Tiger King, my brother's been watching that, and from the sounds of it, he is getting a kick out of it. He is amazed by what's been going on, and he does say hi, by the way. So if you wanna,
Oh, hi, what's up?
if you
Shout
wanted to
out.
if you want to give a shout out to my bro, just say hi Chris or something like that. That'd be
What's up,
cool.
Chris? Thanks for watching. What were you
I'll
saying though?
I'll send I'll send the love to him, and yeah,
Okay.
he was amazed by the whole show,
Yeah,
by
it's
what he
fascinating because I mean we're just talking about like the big points too. Like if you it's got 7 hours, I think 7 episodes, so there's a lot more to it. Like if you get down into it, like I was just interested in like a lot of the connections and like the similarities because we're like it covers three different zoos across the country and they're in different states, but like two of them are like almost the same. Like they're both run by eccentric males who run like communes and have like multiple spouses.
Right.
And that was what got me going crazy. Like I remember I kept telling my wife stuff about it. She wasn't interested in watching it, so I would watch it, and then every episode I'd come over and be like, "Oh my god, you're never gonna believe this!" Like both of them have like uh multiple wives and multiple like they live on these compounds with multiple houses, and like one guy, I mean they're obviously different because like the Ansel guy, the one like the sub character, he was like the third character, wasn't as popular and talked about, but he had a whole thing going and he was like the richer one, like he had like
Yeah.
multiple houses on like a big lot, and he was just kind of like he worked on Hollywood movies
Yeah.
and also happened to have like five wives.
And
Wow.
he had the better facility. Like
Yeah.
they were different. It was really funny because they interviewed that guy, and he says it costs $10,000 a year per tiger to feed them. And then they go to Joe Exotic, and he's like, "Yeah, we're feeding them for about $3,000 a year."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I know. And that reminds me, I loved how I didn't love it. I mean, it's kind of messed up, but it's interesting because the part about that was the with his one where the Joe Exotic Zoo, they would get that expired meat from Walmart, and like
Right.
that was like a big part of what they fed the animals and how they kept the budget down. But then on top of that, the weirdest thing was like the workers at the zoo would pick through it first. So it
Right.
was feeding the workers too. And
Well, it's the sell by date. It's not necessarily the
yeah, I know, I know.
expiration date. Like it's the last day that you could put in the freezer, and like it didn't seem like they had a bunch of unhealthy tigers on there, but it is like there's no way you cut $7,000 down in costs without cutting a few corners. So they're
Yeah.
taking
And I
expired
don't,
meat.
yeah, I don't think I have any, like, I think the meat was probably all fine, especially for the tigers. Like, I'm sure the tigers could eat it all fine. I just found it funny that the zoo workers were like looking through it first, and that was like how they ate too. And
Right.
yeah, I'm sure like some of it was good because yeah, I mean you could go through expired stuff in your fridge. Like it's not like it's necessarily bad. And then other times, sometimes something could go bad before the expired date. It's not like a written in stone, like
Right.
totally factual. I get that. And then the other thing that I think Joe said to defend it too, he was defending it and saying, yeah, if I think it's just like sometimes if you take something off the shelf, you can't put it back on the shelf, and they got to get rid of it. So
Right.
like especially with those products, it's like not like it's even bad. It's just like sometimes someone picks up a thing of roast beef or whatever, and then they decide they don't want it, but the store can't put it back on the shelf because of like rules.
Yeah, and again, it's you're kind of recycling that product that would just get thrown out. Like that's a lot of wasteful meat, and the tiger's stomach is so acidic. Like they can tank that. Remember, they're eating meat that's out in the wild. It's not like if they stumble upon like a kill that's already rotting, that the tiger won't eat that.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's what I was saying. The tigers can eat anything. I mean, they could probably eat a soda can. Like they've
but they were
got like
eating roadkill too.
yeah, and then they would eat like whole animals. Like they could eat the bones, like they'll chew up the whole fucking thing and it'll come out. And like that was another thing they were talking about when they were speculating about Carol Baskin's husband.
Oh
And
yeah.
and they're like saying how yeah, if you fed him a lion or tiger that a person, like it would come out just soft and you wouldn't even know it. You wouldn't even get bones coming out. But anyway, that's a
Well.
little dark. But the other thing I was just thinking though, like, because I really liked the similarities too. Like we're talking about the zoos and then the employees, and then I saw someone put the comparison together because they talked about the different employees at each zoo, and it was just like fascinating because it was like first you're like, oh shit, like the ones I forget what the numbers were, but it was like the workers at Joe Exotic Zoo get paid like 150 a week. And then it was like, you think that's bad? Well, Antle pays his girls 100 a week. And then they go down to Carol Baskins, and she doesn't even freaking pay her people.
Yeah, they're
They're all
volunteers.
volunteers, and you're just like, oh my god, they're like all like, it's crazy, you know. I know they get other stuff too, like they live on the property, and you know, like they get some of that food and stuff, but it's like it's still really low, like $100 a week, and they work every day, like the
Yeah.
one
12 hours
chick.
a day.
Yeah, the chick was saying like 18 hours a day or whatever. It's like your whole entire life, and I was just like, Jesus, and you're only getting $100 a week. It's like, damn. And then, yeah, then Carol Baskins does it for nothing. And then that was the other thing that really reminded me and frustrated me was like, yeah, I just Carol Baskins, she doesn't just like, yeah, she looks like Hillary Clinton, but she like operates like them too, and just like really frustrates me like her because you know she's like a typical liberal, and she's just like trying to be the pro animal activist, like focusing on that path. And the most messed up thing is she does the same things as the other two zoos, but acts like she's better than them.
Yeah, it's rules for me, not for
Yeah,
thee. And
exactly.
she used to breed tigers. That's the one distinction she tries to draw, is that she doesn't breed them anymore.
Hmm.
But she used to do that. And the reason that you breed the tigers is because the cubs are more profitable.
Hmm.
However, she's saving the tigers, and that's insanely more profitable than actually breeding the cubs.
Yeah,
So,
because she
like,
just collects donations and has like a fraction of the tigers. She has like those other guys have like hundreds of tigers, and she has like I think a dozen or like 50 maybe or something like.
and her tiger cages look worse, significantly
Yeah.
worse
Oh yeah.
than the Doc guys. The
Hmm.
Joe Exotic, half and half.
Let me
Um,
go ahead and shout out to our new guest, Clinton. Can you hear us? Welcome to the show, Clinton. I see you down there. I'm not sure if you're hearing us or your headphones are working, but we're here for you if you want to chime in or say anything. Welcome to the show. And are you there? We're just talking about Tiger King, so feel free to chime in whenever you're ready or you feel like it. But yeah, no, the Carol, that's exactly it, and that's a theme like we see with a lot of left wing people. And I even started a series on it because I got so frustrated with it, and it's just like my series is called "It's Okay When Liberals Do It." You know, it's like the
Do
same
as I
thing.
say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yes,
like
yes.
and there's so many examples of that. That's why I could just go on, and it's just like like we could go back to the Green New Deal stuff, and they're like trying to make everyone green, but they're not green. They're still driving SUVs, using water bottles, this or that.
jetting around the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Agreeing with
Biden
um,
has that going on right now too. My latest episode was about the Biden allegations and him getting accused by someone about getting him abusing them, and the whole point was, and I said this in my video, I was just like, I haven't looked into this case, like I'm not sure, like I don't know if any of us really know if it's true or not, but it doesn't actually matter because if this was even suggested for anyone on the right, it would be assumed to be true and they'd be punished for it already. But with Biden, it's okay when they do it. And you even got the most prominent Me Too feminist in the country, Alyssa Milano, flip flopping on that, which is pretty outrageous.
Yeah, she'll sit behind Brett Kavanaugh and what you call it, just use her celebrity to try to ruin his reputation and his life with
Hmm.
allegations that weren't reported at the time, that were very inconsistent. Some of them were just ridiculous. Like if you broke, the one that was represented by the Stormy Daniels lawyer, like
Right.
those allegations were ridiculous. Those were insane.
Hmm.
But they were all assumed to be true, and we had to stop him from getting to the Supreme Court because you can't have somebody at that high of an office with those kind of allegations, however non-credible the majority of them were, like from the jump, easily dismissible. But Joe Biden, this woman that has a connection to him, that apparently tried to report this near the beginning of the campaign, those aren't to be taken seriously. And there's that article where it's like he has no history of it, except for his history of making women feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I saw that. That was like a New York Times tweet, I think. Yeah, it's ridiculous, and it's just so. And you going through it again there reminds me of how similar it is too. Because I mean, Kavanaugh didn't have an election, but like we're talking about two prominent figures in politics going for a big position, and that's a good time to kind of like bring up some bad stuff. Like if there is bad stuff that we need to acknowledge before they take an office position. That's why. I mean, I don't believe any of that Kavanaugh bullshit. Like, I think he was innocent, and they made up a bunch of shit just to try to railroad him because they hate Trump and they don't want a conservative judge. That's probably what happened. But yeah, it's like, yeah, Alyssa Milano gladly hopped on board. She showed up to the hearing, which is just like weird. It's like, why would this actress from a '90s or early 2000s TV show be showing up at some political hearing? She has nothing to do with anything. And yeah, and then now we're talking about an even bigger position, a president who possibly has an allegation, which again, like I said, I still have not come down on this, like, because I don't know enough details. I just know the cursory introduction stuff. But that's the thing, it doesn't matter because it's just like they would assume Biden was guilty if he was a Republican.
Look, I'm not going to pretend that the timing isn't suspicious. She may have gone to the Me Too thing when Biden was ready to announce in the beginning. Because remember, Biden was the front runner when he announced. Then he fell off, and then he took the lead after South Carolina and became the front runner again, and is now the presumed to be nominee. But the fact that this was brought up now and not earlier in the campaign, this woman decided to go forward earlier in the campaign, is suspicious. It's just like Dianne Feinstein leaking that memo after Kavanaugh is nominated officially by Trump instead of when he's on the list of judges to be considered. Right. So I'm not going to pretend that this isn't it isn't a potential political hatchet job against Joe Biden. However, unlike Blasey Ford, who could not name the date or the exact location or any of the details that you would even need to know if you were going to try to verify anything, other than her friends did not remember the party. Like her very good friend didn't remember the party that she referenced. This woman has filed criminal charges against Joe Biden today.
Yeah, it's definitely even just with that beginnings of the story, it's more credible, more compelling. It makes more sense. But yeah, again, like you said, and I've tried to tiptoe around this too because until more comes out, like I'm not trying to say Biden's guilty. Like I don't know right now, but the main point, the larger point is, he would be assumed to be guilty in a lot of other circles, especially like at least Alyssa Milano is the worst. Okay. And she wasn't even that good when she was good. Like she was on Charmed. She pretended to be a witch, and she was just basically the sexy one that would like tease ones. She was like the prettier, like not even prettier necessarily. She just wore skimpier clothes than the rest.
Rose McGowan was actually really attractive back then. It's a shame what happened to her.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Alyssa Milano is known for her beauty. Like the ship that Star-Lord drives in Guardians of the Galaxy is called Milano. It's named after her.
Yeah, and I know she's pretty, but like I think beyond a pretty face, it's like there's not much more there. She's not like a great actor. She's not like amazing or smart.
It's not just her. It's the media hypocrisy because everyone ran. Like the Washington Post admitted that they were publishing basically unverified allegations. They had a woman who it took her like 5 meetings with her lawyer to decide that she was going to accuse Brett Kavanaugh, even though she said in her allegations that she didn't remember the incident. But her friends told her that this totally happened to her when she was at Princeton or Yale, whatever school Brett Kavanaugh went to. These guys are all Ivy League. But she had to remember she had to go 5 sessions in order to remember what happened. And all the allegations against Kavanaugh were at least like there was no real date, there were no charges, there was nothing for Kavanaugh to really disprove. And this one, there seems to be a little bit more of that. Like, this woman did press charges, but again, like, it's still 30 years later. It's low stakes, because even if it comes out that she wasn't telling the truth, or we find out better than not chance that she's not telling the truth, it's not going to be crystal clear enough for her to face consequences. Like, people are talking about, oh, well, she could face this amount of time in jail. But how many times have we ever seen somebody go to jail for false allegations? It almost
Right.
never happens, even if it's 100% proven that they're false.
I know. I mean, even that goes back to something else. There was a couple other hoaxes. I mean, it's not necessarily false allegations, but you just reminded me of like Jussie Smollett.
Right.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
just like the story of someone making something up to try and push some kind of political agenda, and that one just comes to mind because I think I talked about it again because there's a new story that just happened. I thought that was similar, was like the CBS nurse video, which was like turned out to be pretty like suspect and fake. You guys might remember it was like a week ago, and the nurse was crying.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then so basically that all turned out to be exaggerated. I mean, you could really tell she's fake crying if you just kind of look into the video a little bit. But people
Okay.
wanted to believe it. CBS reported it, and it was just like, yeah, she acted like she was like in working at these hospitals, but it turned out she hadn't been there in a year, and then came back for 2 days in the middle of the crisis, which just looks real suspect, you know.
And to be clear, CBS did not report it. CBS edited in dramatic music and subtitled it and
Yeah.
distributed it without verifying it.
Yeah, that's like what is that? It's an Instagram video from some Instagram influencer wannabe. Like she was trying to get famous. And that was the funny thing I found out more. Like she deleted all her accounts, but you can find a few of her pictures if you kind of like Google the name or something. And it was so cringy because you just look at her and like right before she posted this video on Instagram, she has like pictures of her butt in a new pair of jeans, and she's got like a picture of her in a nurse outfit with like a bunch of makeup on, like just kind of like pretending to be the nurse. So she's like, her whole gimmick was like, oh, I'm gonna have this nurse YouTube channel or whatever, not YouTube, Instagram. But
Yeah.
that also reminds me, there actually is a market for that. Like I've seen a few videos on YouTube too, where these like nurses have their vlogs and just talk about working at hospitals.
Right.
So I think she was going for that. But yeah, then when the story comes out that not only had she not worked for a year and then comes back for the virus, which to me just seems like, oh, she was trying to get material for Instagram.
Right.
So she's
and
like, I'm going to go to the hospital during this crisis and act like I'm a hero now or something.
and they did in fact have the masks for the people when they're going into the COVID area.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then the other part about me, and that this does tie back, I think it's related. We're kind of going off of the whole sexual allegations, but we are talking about like fake news. We're talking about people making false allegations, false premises, and not getting any punishment for it. But because, like, I mean, the nurse lady, I'm not saying they all necessarily need punishment. The nurse lady is not like, it's not like she is bad as some of these other things. Like, obviously, Jussie Smollett, for example, is a lot worse, but he might not, he's probably not as bad as like a sexual abuse allegation because that's like another level. But they're all related, and it's all about just kind of lying and misleading people online. And I think the worst part, I think we could address each one again down the line before we wrap up, and then maybe we'll wrap up after this topic. It looks like we're past an hour. But about the nurse, like the thing that killed me was she was just trying to say, she said this line like twice, and it was like, oh, our hospitals aren't protected, like it was something like really cringy, and I just felt like she had that line written down before,
Well,
you know.
It seemed very forced, indeed.
Yeah. And it was
There-
like she tried to put that line in, like, and that was like her thesis, like, oh, that's why I'm making this video. I want to pretend that the hospitals aren't protected, and I'm going to get a bunch of attention for it.
It was also America's not ready for this. America's not
Yeah,
ready for
that's
this.
what I'm
That's
thinking
why
too.
they ran it.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. That's exactly, yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was like just such a planned, pre-written line. And she said it in the beginning and the end, and it was just like, I was like, oh my God, this is so obvious. This is so transparent. And it was just like, that's the kind of thing. Like, I don't know. Like, she's definitely on the lower end of some of the other stuff we talked about. But I think there should be like consider some kind of like punishment. Like, I don't know. I guess not with the government. I think she's getting enough punishment. Like, this is kind of like a court of the public opinion punishment. Like, she's getting properly, like, just like she deserves to be chastised on the internet, basically. I'm not saying she deserves anything really bad. Like, I don't want bad things to happen to anyone, even if they do dumb shit. But, she definitely deserves some bad comments and people talking shit on her Instagram,
Plus, a lot of these people get a slap on the wrist at most.
Yeah. And that's what I feel. And that bounces back to Jussie Smollett because I don't know. I think some people called me out in the comments. I might have misspoke or just like I kind of thought he got punished. Like I know he went to court, but I think he basically got off like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
So the woman, she didn't commit a crime, so that's different. She is inciting panic in the public during a crisis for her own Instagram fame, and that's shameful. But she didn't commit a crime. She didn't file a police report.
Yeah.
So that's different. Jussie Smollett, like what he did was he's not convicted of a crime, but in my opinion, he committed a crime. I know it's alleged because he's not convicted. And he got a slap on the wrist where he didn't have to admit guilt. And all he did was forfeit like 10 grand in bail and promised to do community service. But some of that community service was stuff that he already did in the area. It was just his own choice of what kind of community service he wanted to do. So we don't even have a situation where Jussie Smollett's like forced to dress in that orange jumpsuit and pick up trash on the side of the highway.
Mm-hmm.
So he got a slap on the wrist, and they brought charges around a second time. But honestly, I don't think that's going anywhere because they already charged him with it, and it seemed like they brought that to hurt the district attorney in the primary election that she was going into, which, by the way, she deserves.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem like they're doing that to legitimately charge and convict Smollett.
Yeah, so with that kind of summary, it's for sure like a slap on the wrist. Like he got the kind of court of public opinion treatment too because everyone's been shit talking him since it came out. Dave Chappelle basically ruined his name, turned him into Juicy Smollett, which is just like I don't know how you're gonna come back from that. But like I think there could have been more done there. Again, nothing like too extreme, but like maybe a bigger fine or the jumpsuit kind of perp walk kind of thing at the least. But yeah, there's definitely something there because moving past the nurse for now, but just one last thought on that is just like it's kind of like screaming fire in a movie theater almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I know that is a bad thing to do, and that's the thing I'm not sure how much of a crime it is actually, but that's like what I see as the nurse doing, like screaming fire, trying to get people riled up based on false information. But that again, it's hard to say, and there's a lot of details there, and she's on the bottom end of the worst things here. But yeah, Jussie Smollett I think is properly in the middle of what we're talking about because he'd filed a police report. He did like all these interviews, like he took the story around the country, and he just like made shit up. And like even if it's just the false police report, there's a small crime there, and you could even argue there's more to be had, like similar to the fire in a theater thing almost, but just different because it's just more like his stuff was just pointed at, oh, Trump people are violent and attacking people.
Yeah, it seemed very politically motivated, and the fact that he had to do this in Chicago, I'm like, MAGA country, my ass. Chicago is a very diverse city.
Yeah, Chicago is not. You're not going to find people in MAGA hats at 2 a.m. when the freezing cold of night going by the subway where Jussie Smollett was. Like that's not going to happen.
And this is coming from somebody wearing a Union Pacific hat that lives an hour away from Chicago himself.
Okay.
Take it from me.
The most telling thing about the Smollett story is that they tried to buy MAGA hats and they didn't sell them in the area that they were trying to commit the crime in.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Very blue. It's a very blue part of town.
Yeah, and I think that just goes to show, because with that situation, like, okay, just to reference the nurse one more time, it's like the nurse was just talking You know, like she's just making a video on her phone, fake crying, which is, you know, pretty stupid and lame. But it's like when you go back to Smollett, like you said, like he had a whole operation. Like he hired two guys like to pretend to be MAGA, and he like set up this whole fake beat, like fake fight. Like that's like more elaborate. That's like some real like shady like political theater right there.
I think the two guys were Nigerian, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they're like two big black dudes. I think he worked out with them at some gym or something, you know. And it's like, yeah, that's a whole other thing because then you're talking about you're like faking a crime. You're like committing some kind of fraud, some kind of like false representation. You could get into even like I guess there's no one specific, so I don't know if you can't really do like a slander thing, but I would certainly say if like it's slanderous to like conservatives, Trump supporters, like you're trying to beat them down with this like fake news.
Right. They're both similar in that what they did was to bring attention to themselves and make themselves look better.
More relevant.
But the crime is the false police report, and the fact that he was a celebrity that generated all that news around him, and you had all these people saying it was Mike Pence's fault. Remember, Ellen Page went on whatever late night show, and she was like, "This is what happens when you have Mike Pence," and Mike Pence is like, "What?"
It's like, who's Ellen Page?
Right.
Yeah, no, I know exactly. Yeah, they took it, and it was so obvious because they went for that whole anti-Trump angle right away, and it was just like so quick. And then yeah, you actually reminded me of another similarity that's kind of obviously there, but I never said it. Was just like yeah, they're Smollett and the nurse are both these like wannabe celebrities.
They became overnight sensations.
Yeah, and they did it for attention on the internet mostly, or whichever TV. Smollett was on TV, and yeah, granted, Smollett has already had an acting career and he's been in some movies, but still, I mean, he's not famous. Like no one knew who he was before this.
Exactly, I was about to say that. Like he was nobody to me until this story went viral.
Yeah, and it totally changed everything, and then that leads us back. To the allegations where we started with the Me Too stuff. We're talking about the Biden one, and any final thoughts on that if you guys have them. But I think I could see that it's very different because yeah, we're talking about people. They're not necessarily getting attention like the other ones. Like I don't think the accusers are necessarily trying to be famous. I don't know. Blasey Ford had a bit of a thing going. Like I kind of felt like she was looking for time on camera or something, but she's also a troubled woman, and that was a whole other thing. But yeah, I think the whole point is they're bringing up these allegations, these fake stories at perfect times, and usually it's directed at just destabilizing or attacking conservatives, or in this case it's attacking Biden for once. But that's why it's so funny that no one's talking about it and it's just getting buried,
despite having minutes upon minutes of evidence of him sniffing and touching, and oh my god,
The
That's
funny,
so disturbing.
Laura, go ahead.
It's just so disturbing how he's always smelling somebody. Like, what's up with that?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's funny how the way that the left describes accusers and how they're treated is only true when they accuse a lefty person running for office. Like that's not how they're. Blasey Ford, people raised money for her. Like she was trying to get the Anita Hill treatment because now Anita Hill, the one who accused Clarence Thomas, she's a celebrity on the left. So she like, I'm not saying that she was trying to do that. Obviously, we still don't know, but a lot has come out since the Kavanaugh allegations that go against her credibility, and stuff during the allegations have gone against her credibility. But Tara Reid, I believe this woman's name is, she's being dismissed and treated as a liar automatically and like assumed to have bad motivations just because she's accusing Joe Biden running for president. And that's the same exact thing that happened to all of the people who accused Bill Clinton when he was running for president and while he was governor of Arkansas. So like the culture that they talk about that supports the people, the men over the women because the men are in positions of power is only true for the Democrats.
Yeah, that's the most messed up part for sure. Yeah, it's them. Like they just that's why it's kind of I mean, granted, it's terrible. We don't want anyone to get abused, but this is like a perfect scenario to kind of expose their hypocrisy because they have this accuser for one of their most prominent players who's running for president now. So of course they're going to try and defend him, but it just exposes how hypocritical they are, and they're the like you just said, like they're the ones doing the thing they were arguing against before.
Right. And they'll turn around if Joe Biden loses to Donald Trump, he doesn't win. They'll turn around just like they did with Bill Clinton after Hillary Clinton lost and say maybe we should have taken these accusers seriously. And then on top of that, they'll say, well, that's just indicative of the misogynistic culture that we all live under. So they'll do what they say is the problem throughout this whole Biden campaign. If Biden loses, all of a sudden, they'll say that their behavior is indicative of the thing that they were complaining about all along.
Yeah, it's them. They're the problem. You know, they're the ones
They'll blame
going.
the culture and men overall.
Yeah, and they try to blame. It's just so funny how they try to spin that on to Trump or like conservatives overall, or like you just said, men overall. Like they try to flip that over, and it's just like, no, you guys are the ones doing this, playing favorites. It's like, why if you can't be unbiased, like quit trying to play both sides. You know, like we need to let the courts or someone deal with this that's not like necessarily 100% politically motivated, because it just shows like, and I think that's what the worst part is, and that's why I think Alyssa Milano is like totally done after this. I mean, I don't think she's gonna go anywhere. Like she'll probably still be hanging around, but like she really got exposed here. Like everyone already hated her, or a lot of people I know already hated her, and we knew she was the worst. But just the way like she's tried to defend this contradiction, it's been so bad. Like and like you can't. It's still going on. Like I did a video about it a couple days ago, and I got some of the beginning quotes and tweets, and then next thing you know, I didn't even get to put in my video. She's on TV talking about it again, and it's like she's totally like dancing around, like trying to justify this, doing these mental gymnastics, and it was just so insane to watch. But it's like it's good as it makes her look bad, but it's kind of crazy to think they could get away with this. It's crazy.
Now due process matters. Don't you know that?
Yeah, due process is important all of a sudden, which is crazy. But yeah, I think that's a pretty cool place to end. I'm going to start to wrap things up here, say bye to a few people. Let me start by thanking our guests here, the panel. You guys have been real fun to talk to. Thanks for coming back, Sean, Marcus. Welcome to Lord. And Crystal, you guys have all been fun. Hopefully we have you all back next time. We're trying to do these again, kind of like the first week of each month. If you just keep up with the Twitter and the community page on YouTube, we'll keep posting the updates. But yeah, it's been fun. Any final thoughts from you guys? Did we get to all the subjects and points that you guys wanted? Good?
I'm good.
We're good.
Well, I just did it just moments ago, and I thought I'd do it again, you know. Scotty's Hot Dogs.
All right. Yeah, a
Perfect.
little plug. That's your employer, right?
Yep, serving
Yeah.
hot dogs since '66.
Good. God bless them for keeping your job going. You know, if anyone could keep working, we need it right now. Hopefully, everyone else is doing good out there, being safe. Let me shout out to some people in the chat. Let's see who we got here before we get going.
Chat too.
We got Vilter, Buff in the house. Thanks for coming, Machiavelli and Miles and Melvin. Green Mountain Brownie says, "What's wrong with breeding tigers?" Good question. We kind of missed in the Tiger King part, but yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like I know there's like some issues. Like the Carol Baskins camp tries to pretend, oh, they're getting abused and they're not in the right place. But then it's like we said earlier, she does the same shit. She was breeding at one point, now she doesn't. But then she's got these cages that are like terrible. You know, it's like I don't know why she thinks she has the high road, but it definitely has something to do with her looking like Hillary Clinton.
One point we need to discuss that wasn't mentioned about the
Sure.
Tiger King is this the point that these are wild animals and they're not going to be tamed. It's not a cat or a dog. These are wild animals. And it wasn't long ago I was at Busch Gardens and a lioness was staring me down. And there was a class competition between the two of us because that's just a murder machine. You can't raise and breed them and pretend to be pets with animals like that. There's still wild. They're gonna have those wild instincts. As you saw, was that first episode that girl got her arm ripped off?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually thought I thought I know what you're saying for sure, and I actually thought that was going to be more of the documentary, like because
Yeah,
to me in the beginning I just thought that was the more of the premise, and then when the girl lost the arm, like that was kind of, but that was the kind of the only part of the story that was that, you know. I guess there was one time it attacked Joe. There was like one time he was getting like bit, but it wasn't as bad. But like it was that time they said he put perfume on his shoes and they
Yeah,
kept
something like
going after him, and that's what
yeah,
I thought it was gonna be. But because like I felt like that is true, like what you were just saying, Lord. These are wild animals, and you might have them under control for a certain amount of time, but it's just a matter of time before they snap or just take a
that.
chance to eat your hand or something.
The
yeah,
argument for breeding them is not, is that that's what we do with endangered species. And if you're like, it's an endangered species, you make more of them if you want to
yeah.
save the species. But I
Yeah.
get the private zoo thing. And remember that Ohio story where the guy released 50 of these animals
Hmm.
into the neighboring town. Like, that's horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely downsides, and I definitely think, you know, I don't know, like we like you mentioned about the documentary stuff, like you don't know what you're seeing and what you're not seeing, and then so like some of those places looked fine, like the Antle one looked like a more premium, like really nice place for animals. But yeah, I'm sure Joe Exotic might be cutting some corners. It could be even worse there than you actually think. I don't know if it's necessarily as bad as Carol Baskins would have you think. Like she's trying to shut him down. But I understand the argument. Like the argument is, you know, breeding and caging animals is just bad for them. But at the same time, like you said, like other people say, like they are endangered. If we weren't breeding them, there would only be like 10, like a few thousand in wild right now, and there's like
It's like
10,000 in
it's like
America.
yeah, it's like 10,000 in America in private collections and 4,000 in the wild.
Yeah. So that's like, I mean, that's good. I know they bring that up in the doc a few times, that point. And I think you kind of can see it both ways. You know, you can kind of see it their way, which I think they're trying to say, oh, this is too many caged animals. Like, oh, yeah, it's a little weird too. It's in America. And we got like, we're a developed society and we've got like possibly like Ohio situations going on, like big cats running around. But at the same time, like, yeah, there is a good side. There's like, at least we're keeping this species going. Like this is part of their survival. It might not be the best situation, but you know, at least they're trying. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good question, good story, good place to end. I love Tiger King. I hope Trump considers the pardon if he is truly innocent. But besides that, let me just say thanks to the panel again. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, good to be on.
All right, yeah. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you to the chat, of course, and everybody watching. Good show, good stuff all around. We'll see you on the next video.
All right, man.
Bye bye.
All right.